My name is Rose Coghlan. I work at the Sea Around Us in the distribution of the species that we include in our catch database, as well as any other characteristics about them which might be important, such as the temperature that they prefer to live in, habitats that they're associated with, and where we find them globally. I do a lot of different projects. Someone will come to me and want to know about how the primary production required by the catch has changed since 1950 till the present day, so I will go and find a whole bunch of information on that, do some calculations, and then provide it to people to then incorporate into models. Like I said earlier, I've done that with the temperature of the catch and just a bunch of different variables that we might want to include in the model. So rather than dealing with who catches what, where or when, I work mainly with the species that we're catching and any attributes those species have that we might want to include as a covariate in our analyses. So where other people are going through country by country and seeing who's catching what, where in that case, we try to keep my work separate so that if, for instance, someone in their country has reported catching a fish, we want to have an outside source stating whether it's possible for them to catch that fish, if that fish is found in that country's waters or not. And in some cases, countries will just by accident report catching a fish which actually isn't distributed in their waters. So we try to keep the two elements separate as a sort of quality control on where we're saying fish can be found or can be caught. So I went down to the Galapagos to do some work, not Sea Around Us work, but some other work. And I did learn about an interesting case down there. I did a lot of snorkeling and diving and things like this, and I saw a lot of sea cucumbers. And then what happened down in the Galapagos was suddenly a market came out of nowhere for sea cucumbers. And the government said, okay, we'll let you go out there and we'll let you fish, I don't know, let's say 60,000 sea cucumbers. We'll give you a quota of something like that. And the sea cucumber industry was so lucrative that I think it was like 500,000 sea cucumbers later. And there had been whole industries sprung up around the sea cucumber fishery where people would have boats that would cruise around the island selling food. There'd be like bars on boats and things like that. And the sea cucumber industry just rapidly crashed. And it was because they had underestimated the capacity for the fishermen to go out there and really strip the reefs of the sea cucumbers. So that was an interesting anecdote to hear about while I was down there, and the Sea Around Us had actually worked on that. And I guess what I could say is that some countries have greater capacity to collect information on the species found in their waters than in other countries. And there are certainly some times where I've been surprised at how important a fish might be to a country's fisheries or to the people who live in that country that depend on it, and yet how little information there is on the attributes of that fish. So some extremely commonly caught fish, there's very little information on where they are distributed in the world. Other than that, we know that people are catching it in these waters, but we still don't know how deep it lives or other attributes which might be important to the management of that fish. This usually is not the case in developed nations, but it's definitely the case in some developing nations. I wanted to work with the Sea Around Us because it is an exciting opportunity to have a look into how developing nations and developed nations all over the world are managing their fisheries and the different challenges that people face from a global perspective.